The army is standing outside the northern border of the Krasis kingdom. The army is led by Duke Elian, who is the lord of the northern frontier. But something is strange, because Elian is very shocked and scared after seeing the army of undead monsters approaching them. The main issue is that the number of the undead is beyond imagination, and not only that, the undead army is also bringing a terrifying poison mist toward them. The soldier standing next to Elian notices something and tells him to look there. Elian is startled to find that the undead army also has the undead knight, Durian, with them. Durian is an undead said to be capable of killing even 10 high-ranking knights in battle with ease. The soldier next to Elian becomes terrified, believing they cannot win against such overwhelming force, so he suggests Elian retreat and prepare for a siege. Elian is also very afraid, but he knows they cannot retreat since the northern wall has already fallen. If the city gate breaks too, then their nation will be finished. No matter the sacrifice, they must hold them back today. But suddenly, someone passes Elian and heads straight toward the undead army. Seeing that, Elian shouts about the person charging in so recklessly. The soldier informs him that it is Lord Urin Rox, sent to the battlefield from the southern Marquis of Rox. He is the protagonist Urin Rox, the one who fights with daggers. However, Elian believes Urin won't be able to defeat Durian. To their surprise, Urin defeats Durian with his dagger, finally killing him. Elian and the soldier are shocked to see Durian getting defeated so easily. They find it impossible, given the rumors about Durian's extraordinary power, yet it is happening right in front of them. Urin then throws his daggers toward the rest of the undead, defeating them in a single strike. Witnessing this, Elian and the others wonder if Urin is a saint sent by the heavens. But Urin himself believes he is nothing like a saint. Suddenly, a pop-up window appears in front of him, informing him that he has gained EXP and that the Firebone Mountain skill has reached level 1. It is a skill capable of even melting undead marrow. The 10,000 poison absorption technique has absorbed the toxin. The 4 Heavenly Venom Art EXP has increased, and the Firebone Mountain EXP has also risen. Urin thinks to himself that he is not a saint because he will take anything useful for himself. Everything started 6 months ago, when Urin suddenly woke up in bed, wondering where he was since the place was unfamiliar. A maid entered the moment he woke up, and he looked at her with surprise because she was very beautiful. Yet he wondered why she wore such strange clothes and carried a sword at her waist. The white-haired maid asked the boy if he was all right. Even though he looked fine, she decided to call the priest right away. The boy tried to stop her because he wanted to ask something important, but she didn't listen and simply left. After that, he stood up, wondering where he was, but became shocked when he saw himself in the mirror. He realized it was not his body. He wondered where his original, good-looking, middle-aged self was. The boy, or more accurately, the man inside, started sobbing, questioning why he looked like a chubby child. He became scared and frustrated, wondering if this was a dream since he couldn't figure anything out. He concluded that if he just went back to sleep, he would wake up in his real body. Suddenly, the priest returned with more people, including a black-haired old man who seemed to know the boy. The priest inspected him while the black-haired man glared angrily, calling him the disgrace of the family. The boy was terrified, wondering who the man was. The priest laughed and told the black-haired man to punish the boy later, since he had just woken up. The man calmed down a little, and the priest completed his inspection, expressing surprise that the boy was all right despite fainting. He noted that the boy was not badly hurt. His mind seemed stable, and most of his injuries had already healed. The boy replied that it was a relief, but this made the black-haired man angrier. He said it would have been better if the boy had died, because he had assaulted his own fiancée. The boy was shocked since he had no idea what was happening. The black-haired man told him to act like a grown-up because he was already 19 years old. He appeared to be the boy's father, and he scolded him further, saying even his younger brother had already awakened his aura, while he himself was just getting fatter day by day. The boy was stunned after hearing this. His father continued, saying that once he had fully recovered, he needed to go apologize to his fiancée, Ilya, and warned him that his future would be finished if she refused to forgive him. Then, with a heavy voice, his father asks if he understands, and instinctively, Urin replies in fear that he has understood. Before leaving, his father tells him not to disgrace their family name any further. The boy's name is Urin, and he finally realizes the situation after hearing that he is Urine Rocks. He realizes that the person in front of him is none other than Urine's father, the Marquis Willington Rocks. Hearing that makes his father very angry, and he slaps Urine because he dared to call his father's name directly to his face. Urine falls to the ground after receiving the slap straight across his face. The priest and the other person stop the Marquis, telling him to calm down. Meanwhile, Urine is very surprised, silently praying that this must be a dream, and then he loses consciousness. The next moment, he wakes up again, finding himself in the same place as before. He grows nervous, wondering why he hasn't woken up from what he thought was a dream. The white-haired girl asks if he is awake, but Urine is in deep shock and suddenly asks if she is Aaron. She confirms her identity, which makes Urine even more shocked and frustrated. He then continues, asking if the reason he is lying in bed after passing out is because he went after Ilya, got beaten up, and fainted. Aaron is surprised and asks why Urine is suddenly being so formal. Her reaction startles him further, and he continues asking if he was knocked out by Ilya. Aaron confirms that he attacked Ilya in the room, and she beat him senseless until he fainted. Urine realizes he is now in a deeply bad situation. Aaron doesn't understand why he looks so frustrated, but Urine believes he is completely doomed. It becomes clear to him that somehow he has ended up inside the web novel he himself wrote, not as the protagonist, but as the trash villain who picks fights with the hero and, in the end, dies miserably. Urine is far from happy with this situation. He grabs his hair, thinking about how he has ended up in a world that is no longer just a webtoon. Aaron doesn't understand his behavior, but Urine begins crying as he realizes that the creator of that webtoon has possessed the body of Urine Rocks. To put it simply, Urine Rocks is a total scoundrel who has no talent, no skills, and never trains. He leeches off his family name as the heir, eventually loses his fiancée to the protagonist, and in his anger, attacks the protagonist, only to be beaten down instead and die pitifully in some back alley. Urine is terrified, worrying about how he is supposed to survive in such an uncertain world. It is a fantasy world, but he doesn't know what abilities Urine has at all. Still, he at least knows about the opportunities and items that the protagonist has not yet discovered. Thinking that, Urine quickly begins planning what preparations he needs to make. When he tries to stand up, he feels the new body is extremely heavy and falls to the ground. Aaron rushes closer, asking if he is all right, but he replies that he is not all right at all. Suddenly, while Aaron tells him to rest more, he sees something unusual. At first, he couldn't see it clearly because he had frowned, but now he notices a stats window next to Aaron, showing him her abilities. Her traits include Level 2 Swift Sword, Clear Mind at Level 1, and Aura Affection also at Level 1. But the affection stat is at 0. Urine studies the stats panel, making Aaron suspicious, and she asks what he is doing. Nervously, he says he just went crazy for a moment and insists she leave because he is fine now. Aaron follows his order and starts walking toward the door to leave the room, while Urine continues silently reading and thinking about her stats. Seeing her stat window, Urine remembers that Aaron was always designed to be stronger and more talented than regular knights. But what he doesn't understand is the affection stat. Reading it, he wonders if this world has elements of a dating simulation. He thinks that might be the case because he often played dating sims before. After Aaron leaves, Urine feels relieved that her affection stat is at least not negative, considering Urine's usual behavior, but he knows it's still a problem. After saying this to himself, he looks in the mirror and sees the fat body of Urine staring back. Suddenly, his own stats window appears, showing information like his special condition, morbid obesity. His traits include the Eye of the Creator at Level 1, and the 4 Heavenly Venom Arts, though it is currently locked with a sync rate of 99.9%. Among his skills, Urine believes only one truly stands out, the 4 Heavenly Venom Arts. Thinking about it, Urine remembers that this skill comes from the wuxia webtoon he loved reading. It was a webtoon featuring a powerful heroine, and the 4 Heavenly Venom Arts was a martial art of poison and hidden weapons. Urine realizes the lore of this new world is a strange mashup, but he also believes that if he can actually learn the 4 Heavenly Venom Arts, it might become his ticket to survival. A clan that often appears in Chinese wuxia novels is a prestigious sect from Sichuan province, specializing in poisoned and silent assassinations using toxin-laced hidden weapons. And right now, Yurin also has that skill, but it is locked. Looking at the stats panel makes him wonder why such a skill exists in a completely different novel world, since this is supposed to be a medieval setting. Despite that, the most important issue for Yurin is whether he can unlock this ability. Just thinking about it makes him laugh happily. The scene then shifts to Eren, who goes to the Marquis room. There, the Marquis asks her if Yurin has gotten up. Eren confirms that he woke a little while ago. Then he asks about Yurin's condition, and she reports that he doesn't seem normal because he stumbled when he tried to stand, and his body is still in poor condition. The Marquis finds it hard to believe, since even the priest said Yurin's wounds weren't very deep. He then asks Eren if she noticed anything strange, because normally if he had told Yurin to apologize to Ilya, he would have thrown a fit. But this time, Yurin surprisingly agreed to apologize without saying anything. Not only that, but the Marquis also notices a change in Yurin's personality. However, he believes Yurin cannot truly change and will simply go back to his usual behavior by the next day. Hearing that, Eren assures him that Yurin will surely recover step by step. This startles the Marquis, and he immediately turns back to look at Eren, which makes her nervous. He is shocked to realize that even he, as Yurin's father, has already given up on him, but Eren still believes in Yurin. Laughing awkwardly, the Marquis admits that he almost feels bad for her, saying he should have just let her live her life as a knight instead. The Marquis looks worried, thinking about how hard it must have been for Eren to serve Yurin. But Eren insists that it isn't like that, because today Yurin felt somehow very different from before, though it is difficult for her to explain. The next morning, Eren goes to wake Yurin and is shocked when he says he wants to start exercising. She cannot believe what she hears. Yurin then asks her to escort him to the drill yard so he can begin training there. Startled by something Yurin has never said in his life, Eren asks again if he really wants to train right now. Without hesitation, he replies yes, asking if there is any problem. The trait, Eye of the Creator, seems to allow Yurin to view stats, but as for unlocking the Sichuan Tang clan ability, he has no idea how. He wonders if it might be because of his obesity, so he decides to start exercising while figuring out a way to unlock it. Eren and Yurin begin walking toward the drill yard. Seeing the mansion's garden, Yurin thinks its size is equal to several stadiums combined, and just walking through it already leaves him exhausted. During their walk, they pass by several maids, and when they greet him, Yurin notices that every servant he encounters dislikes him. It becomes clear that all of them hate him. Considering how terrible the old Yurin had been, he cannot blame them. After walking for a while, Yurin, exhausted, asks Eren how long it will take to reach the drill yard. Eren replies that they will arrive soon and points out the third training hall, explaining that the first and second are mostly used by the knights. They enter the training hall, where Yurin notices someone already inside. He immediately checks his stats window and is shocked to see that the person harbors a killing urge toward him. This terrifies Yurin. The person's name is Rekka Alian, whose trait is Quick Sword at level 1, and his affection toward Yurin is -91. Rekka looks at Yurin and speaks, asking the reason for his sudden visit to the training hall. Completely frightened, Yurin blurts out Rekka's name, which makes Rekka smile. He says it is an honor that Yurin still remembers him. Shaking, Yurin points at his sword and stammers that of course he remembers, then quickly whispers to Eren, asking if something happened between him and Rekka. While Rekka resumes training, Eren asks Yurin if he really doesn't remember. Yurin replies nervously that he doesn't remember at all. Eren then reveals that a few years ago, when Yurin's father forced him to train, he called Rekka, who had just joined as a trainee at the time, and then Yurin scarred his face with a sword while laughing. After that, the Marquis gave up on trying to make Yurin train. Yurin is shocked to hear this and looks at Rekka, who is still training but glaring back at him with furious eyes, making Yurin tremble. He realizes just how hopeless and disgraceful the original Yurin really was. Understanding the danger of the situation, Yurin decides to leave, more like run away, while Rekka silently watches them go. Once outside the training hall, Yurin asks Eren if there is any other place where he can train alone. Hearing that, Eren tells him about the fourth training hall, but explains that it is very far away and the facilities are poor. In other words, it is just an empty field. Hearing that makes Yurin very happy, and he decides to turn around, telling Aaron that they will go there, claiming that he will lose weight properly. Aaron is amazed and points in the direction, telling him to follow her. After some time, they reach the fourth training hall, but Aaron is already exhausted. After catching his breath, he takes a look at the various kinds of weapons there while thinking about the Sichuan Tang clan, which specialized in throwing knives and small weapons. Thinking about that, Aaron picks up a dagger to try throwing it at the target. After inspecting it, he uses all his strength to throw the dagger, but it doesn't even reach the target and falls to the ground halfway. He had hoped that this might unlock his trait, but it still doesn't. After that, he notices Aaron watching him and quickly assures her that he was just throwing one for fun. He nervously laughs and says that he knows he should first build his basic stamina. Deciding so, he begins running laps around the hall. Aaron is amazed by the sudden change in Aaron's behavior as he starts his basic stamina training. He also tells her that he will train on his own, so she is free to train however she likes. After that, he continues training, looking very tired. Aaron later reports everything to the Marquis, making him very surprised to hear that Aaron actually came to the training grounds and started working out. The Marquis finds it very strange, wondering how long it will last. Soon, 3 weeks pass, and the Marquis is shocked that Aaron has not skipped training even once. Looking through the window, the Marquis also notices that Aaron has lost a lot of weight, making his appearance change noticeably. The Marquis begins to feel proud of his son, because now that he is no longer overweight, his face looks very handsome. However, he is still worried about whether Aaron has truly matured or not. Later, during the sunset, Aaron looks at himself in the mirror in his room, thinking about how much he has slimmed down. But the real issue is that the Sichuan Tang clan trait still refuses to unlock. After that, Aaron dresses himself and decides to give it another month. If it still doesn't unlock, he plans to steal the fateful encounter meant for the protagonist. Right after putting on his clothes, Aaron comes in with dinner, and he thanks her for it. The dinner she brought is chirin soup. Despite its crude name, it is a nutritious stamina dish, very effective for burning fat and building muscle. In the Rock's family, it is customary to eat it after every training session. But Aaron doesn't like the soup at all and feels doomed at the sight of it once again. Seeing his expression, Aaron asks if he is tired of it. Aaron instantly replies that he is, because he has been eating nothing but the soup for 3 weeks straight. Hearing that, Aaron asks him if he just wants to lose weight or if he truly wants to become a knight, pressing him about his real desire. Aaron gives her a thumbs up, saying that he wants to be a knight. Aaron then explains that in this territory, even the King Marquis eats chirin soup after training, so Aaron should stop complaining and eat his soup. Aaron feels threatened and immediately agrees, thinking that life is all about living and learning, even if this feels like an outdated custom. After that, Aaron leaves the room, and Aaron looks at the soup, deciding to put up with it for now because it has helped him lose weight. He takes a bite of the soup, but suddenly feels something strange, as the taste seems subtly different. Then, a pop-up window appears, notifying him that he has ingested poison. Aaron is shocked, and the pop-up screen changes, showing that he has satisfied the unlock condition for the Sichuan Tang clan trait. It is now unlocked. Seeing this, Aaron is completely amazed. Meanwhile, the Marquis, who is truly amazed by the noticeable change in his son's behavior and appearance, is watching him through the window. But someone suddenly knocks on the door, and upon hearing that, the Marquis gives permission to enter the room. It is actually the Marquis' wife, who has brought them tea. She is his second wife, and her name is Kana. She smiles and asks what the Marquis has been looking at so intently. The Marquis lies, saying that he was just admiring how beautiful the garden looks. Kana sets the food tray on the table, then comes closer, smiling, and says she has been personally taking care of the garden with great attention. The Marquis smiles again, complimenting her skills. She then hugs him from behind and asks when he will be choosing Colin as his heir, as he mentioned before. She wants him to announce it earlier since it is already decided. Hearing that, the Marquis tells her it might take a little more time. Her mood changes instantly, and she argues with him, reminding him that he promised to name Colin heir within this month. The Marquis confirms that he did say that before, but explains that the situation has changed slightly. He tells her she has probably already heard that Aaron has finally come to his senses, and he is also the eldest son of House Rocks. The Marquis believes that if Aaron truly applies himself, he could turn out to be a worthy successor. Kana agrees, saying she has also heard the same thing. She smiles, admitting she was so worried. But thankfully, it seems Yurin has sobered up at last. She continues, saying it must be a relief for the Marquis as well. He turns around and agrees with her, admitting he never thought Yurin would finally come to his senses after being struck by his fiancée. Kana again presses him, asking when he will announce Colin as the successor. The Marquis explains that Yurin has only just started training for a week, so it is better to watch him a little longer. However, he promises Kana that if Yurin goes back to his old ways, he will immediately give the heir title to Colin, who is her first son. After hearing that, Kana turns to leave, telling the Marquis that she will head to the bedroom first so he can finish his work and come quickly. After closing the door, her facial expression completely changes, showing anger and hatred toward Yurin. The scene then shifts to Yurin, who is looking at the panel showing that the trait has finally unlocked. He is shocked, realizing that the Sichuan Tang clan specializes in poison, and the unlock condition was to ingest poison. Yurin looks curiously at his soup and opens the stats window for its information. He notices a down arrow icon, meaning there is more information below. When he scrolls, the pop-up window updates, showing the ingredients. Among them is the Hanyang herb, whose attribute is paralysis. It is basically a medicinal plant, but carries a mild toxin. It is harmless to adults in small amounts, but if it builds up, it slowly paralyzes the body until death. Yurin is thrilled to see that the system displays this information. To Aaron, however, he just seems to be acting strangely, since she cannot see the stats window. She looks at the soup and remarks that he isn't eating it. Hearing that, Yurin quickly starts eating the soup. As he eats, he thinks about who could have put poison in his food. Normally, Yurin cannot be killed by poison, so he believes something has changed in the flow of events. Now that he thinks about it, something that should have already happened has not. In the original story, this was around the time when Colin, the second son, was supposed to be officially named heir. Yurin wonders why that hasn't happened yet. The only reason he can think of is that his sudden training has delayed the decision, which means that whoever put poison in his food must be from that side. Yurin munches happily while another pop-up window appears, showing that the condition for unlocking weak paralysis poison has been met. After finishing the meal, he tells Aaron that he has finished it, crying and saying it was so delicious it brought him to tears. Aaron doesn't understand at all and just looks at him nervously, but Yurin tells her to step outside because he wants to spend some time alone. She takes the plates and leaves, telling him to rest. Yurin waves to her, wishing her good night, then looks into the mirror and shouts for the stats window to appear. The stats window now shows that the Sichuan Tang clan trait is unlocked. Just like in a VR game, Yurin decides to focus on the plus button to open the detailed page. It shows that he has unlocked 3 skills: poison, hidden weapons, and martial arts. However, the other skills remain locked. He then focuses on the plus button for poison to see more details. It shows that leveling up requires special conditions, with different poisons available depending on the user's level. Yurin scrolls all the way down to see the final poison available. Seeing that, he concludes that he must first unlock all the lower levels. In other words, it is a level-up unlock system. To obtain the most basic poison, weak paralysis poison, Yurin needs an inner technique. This makes sense to him, since the Sichuan technique uses internal energy to wield poison. After that, Yurin decides to check the second skill, martial arts, and there it shows the basic inner technique selection menu: dark poison arts, thunder needle arts, and 10,000 venom divine energy. It also displays a warning, stating that Yurin can only choose one inner technique. Yurin laughs happily, saying it is an easy choice since he is a wuxia fan. Dark poison arts focuses on poison, thunder needle arts focuses on hidden weapons, and 10,000 venom divine energy takes longer to master but allows one to reach mastery in both poison and hidden weapons. The more, the better, he thinks. That is how wuxia protagonists always are. So Yurin decides to choose 10,000 venom divine energy. After selecting it, Yurin's hair begins flowing and his whole body glows. He is shocked because the mantras of the technique engrave themselves directly into his mind. With the mantras fully imprinted, Yurin decides to try circulating energy right away. He takes off his shirt and sits on the bed to concentrate. While focusing, he feels a strange flow moving through his body, chi. He then guides it through the proper meridians and stores it in the dantian to build internal strength. The next day, Yurin is still training, concentrating on circulating chi. He finds it amazing, realizing that martial arts novels weren't lying about training all night without sleep. It feels real, as he doesn't feel tired at all. In fact, his body has changed, and he feels full of energy. He can even sense the flow of chi around him. Not only that, he can tell how many birds are outside the window without even looking. Yurin also feels a solid, warm energy in his dantian, and now, if he circulates chi to his head, he can open the stats window without needing a mirror. The stats window shows that the 10,000 Venom Divine Energy is at 1 star. In other words, only 10% awakened. Suddenly, Yurin senses a familiar aura outside the door and looks toward it. It turns out to be Aaron, who has come to wake him up. She sees him sitting on the bed concentrating and asks if he didn't sleep, since his bedding looks untouched. Yurin laughs, saying it just turned out that way, but Aaron insists it is not good and tells him to rest today. She starts to leave the room, but he stops her, saying that he will train today because he feels great and is in top condition. She turns back, agrees with him, and tells him she will prepare breakfast first. After that, she closes the door, thinking about when Yurin will start gaining muscles. After some time, they reach the 4th training hall, where Yurin picks up a dagger to test his new skills. But he is shocked to see crosshairs in front of his eyes, like a first-person shooter game. With their help, Yurin can precisely aim at the target. Aaron watches him with a doubtful look, her expression clearly saying that Yurin won't be able to hit it just like last time. Yurin throws the dagger, and this time it strikes the target cleanly. Overjoyed, Yurin celebrates while Aaron looks on in surprise. At that moment, a pop-up window appears, informing Yurin that he has finally unlocked the hidden weapon skill of the Sichuan Tang clan. She becomes very curious and asks Yurin what he just did. Yurin replies that he doesn't know either and tells her that he can only guess it must be the result of the past month's training starting to show. Aaron seems very frustrated because there is no way anyone could achieve something like that in such a short time. This makes Yurin realize that it is the first time he has ever seen Aaron look so frustrated. Yurin smiles, deciding to try once more. He grabs a dagger and points it at the target. As he throws it, a fiery inner energy surges up from his lower abdomen. The dagger flies faster and stronger this time, hitting the target and even breaking the wooden target board. Aaron is even more shocked, shouting at the broken board in frustration. Yurin smirks, because to him, having a crosshair from an FPS game appear before his eyes is basically like using a cheat code. In his previous world, he used to play an FPS game called Battle Attack and even won the Yangdongpo PC Cafe tournament. Totally shocked and frustrated, Aaron asks Yurin what is happening. This makes Yurin ask her if she can feel anything coming from him. She doesn't understand the question and simply says that, aside from the fact that he has lost quite a bit of weight since yesterday, she can't notice any other changes. Yurin asks if he really has lost weight, and Aaron confirms it. She explains that since he has been training every day and eating chirin soup, he has been steadily slimming down, but today he looks even more noticeably different. Yurin goes along with her words, now understanding that since Aaron can't sense the inner energy flowing through his body, it means only he can use it, and no one else in this world can detect it. Smirking, Yurin thinks that he has truly gained incredible power. He smiles, grabs another dagger, and decides to keep practicing. Every throw hits the target easily. This time, Yurin aims at the same spot again, and his accuracy is perfect. Aaron is even more shocked. Out of curiosity, Aaron decides to try throwing a dagger herself. She throws with all her might, but fails to hit the target. Seeing that, Yurin laughs, saying there is finally something that Aaron cannot do. Embarrassed, Aaron blushes, but Yurin suddenly notices a pop-up window. It states that he has unlocked the Seikyon Danga memory trait, and also the straight cut skill. This means he can now throw not only faster and stronger, but also use memory-based projection with stones, wood, sculptures, iron swords, or any object as if it were a memorized weapon. Excited, Yurin decides to test it. He grabs a broken sword, but first tells Aaron to step aside. Curious, Aaron asks what he plans to do with it. Yurin raises the broken sword high in the air, channels his inner energy from the dantian down to his arms, then activates the straight cut skill and throws it. The sword flies powerfully, not only hitting the target, but also smashing the wooden board into pieces. Eren is completely shocked and anxious, asking Euron about the source of his sudden power. Euron lies, telling her that he doesn't know either, suggesting it might simply be the power of practice. Eren shouts that such a thing is impossible. Euron then calmly tells her that he knows she reports everything to the Marquis, but asks her for a favor, to keep this matter secret for now. Eren hesitates, trying to deny hiding anything, but Euron insists, saying he is testing several things right now. He assures her that he will explain everything to the Marquis himself later, so she should just wait. Hearing that, Eren finally agrees not to tell the Marquis about this matter. Time passes, and it is now the moment when the mansion's servants change shifts and head home. An orange-haired man is among them, walking toward his house. Euron silently stalks him and uses the Eye of the Creator trait on him. The man's name is Peru, and his traits are Poisonous Touch and Agile Movement, both at level 1. This confirms for Euron that Peru is the one who poisoned his soup. Determined, Euron begins following him, deciding to finally test his newly unlocked skill. He points his finger at Peru and activates Paralytic Poison. Peru suddenly feels sharp pain, his body freezes, and he collapses to the ground, unable to move. Euron laughs as he approaches, pleased that the experiment was a success, and not only that, he can also see the 1-hour duration of the effect. To begin his interrogation, Euron drags Peru to a safe place. Later that night, Peru opens his eyes, groaning in pain. Euron stands before him holding a lantern, asking if Peru is finally coming to his senses. He demands to know if Peru recognizes who he is. Peru is shocked to see Euron. Then Euron threatens him, telling him to answer honestly if he wants to live, and asks directly if he was the one who poisoned the soup. Then Euron tells Peru that he will ask him some questions, and if the answer is correct, Peru should blink once, but if it is wrong, he should blink twice. Euron first asks if he understands, and Peru blinks once, confirming that he does. Euron then continues, asking if the one who poisoned his soup was Peru or not. Peru blinks once, admitting that he was indeed the culprit. Euron follows up by revealing that the poison used was Hanyang herb. Peru is shocked to hear that Euron knows about it, and blinks once to confirm. Seeing that, Euron proceeds to the next question, asking if the person who ordered him to poison Euron was Marcianus Kana. But Euron is very surprised when Peru blinks twice, meaning it wasn't Kana. Euron thinks he is lying and places a dagger against Peru's neck. He repeats the question, asking again if Kana was the one who ordered him, but once again, Peru blinks twice, insisting it was someone else. This makes it clear that Kana was not the mastermind, since Peru does not appear to be lying. Euron decides to set that aside for now. He then hands Peru something, telling him to eat and swallow it, claiming that it is called paralytic poison. Peru gulps it down, and Euron explains that from now on, he has exactly 1 month left to live. If he doesn't take the antidote Euron has before then, Peru will die. Euron threatens him to follow his orders from now on. Terrified, Peru has no choice but to submit in order to survive. Seeing that, Euron places his hand on Peru's head to release him from the paralytic poison. After being released, Peru can finally talk again. Euron confirms this and immediately asks once more about the person who ordered him to poison the soup. Peru reveals that it was not Kana, but the Knight Captain Carox Livington. Euron is stunned to hear that. Peru continues, explaining that Carox ordered him to make Euron die of illness within a year. Carox is Kana's older brother, who became Knight Captain thanks to her marriage with the Marquis. Euron realizes his deduction was not entirely wrong. Carox is indeed Kana's accomplice, but that is not the most important part right now. Euron then gives Peru a sheet of paper. Peru reads it and is shocked to see it contains a list of poisons. Few people are as knowledgeable about poison as he is, and Euron explains that this means Peru can procure them from the black market. Euron orders him to use the money he receives from Carox to buy every poison on the list. He also commands Peru to bring whatever poisons he already has by tomorrow night. Shocked, Peru asks why Euron needs these poisons. Euron becomes angry, demanding to know if he gave him permission to ask questions. Frightened, Peru quickly submits. After that, Euron orders him to go. As Peru begins to leave, Yurin suddenly tells him that the soup must always be loaded with plenty of Hanyang herb from now on. Peru is shocked, unable to believe that Yurin actually wants to be poisoned. After returning to his room, Yurin laughs loudly, finding the situation amusing. He comments that martial arts is very cool and never thought Peru would actually fall for the paralytic poison, which was really just dried leaves lumped together. Now Yurin knows he must quickly master the Sichuan Tang clan martial arts, because if the story follows the setting he wrote, a terrifying event will soon happen in the outside world. The next day passes, and by night, Peru arrives at Yurin's place with the poisonous herbs he already possesses. Yurin inspects them and names them one by one. The first is Hanyang herb, the second is Ukrakpa herb, and the third is wooden vein leaf. Peru is shocked, wondering how Yurin knows about such rare poisons so easily. Yurin smirks, saying this much is nothing, since he can see everything clearly through the status window. Yurin then asks why Peru is carrying the other herbs, because if he only intended to kill Yurin, the Hanyang herb would have been enough. Hearing that, Peru explains that Hanyang herb takes a long time, and once resistance develops, it lasts longer than expected. But if it is combined with Ukrakpa after Hanyang's symptoms begin, the effect becomes stronger. Yurin understands that in other words, poisons become more powerful and subtle when combined. Curious, Yurin asks how Peru learned all this. Peru reveals that when he was just 8 years old, he was sold to the Livington family and trained under a poison master there. Yurin asks if there were many others like him, and Peru explains that there were about 20 children at first, but soon they all died. Only he survived. This makes sense to Yurin, since children without the poison affinity trait wouldn't survive long around toxins. But it also makes clear that Peru harbors deep resentment toward the Livington family. Yurin thinks to himself that he may have just found a very useful tool. He compliments Peru, telling him he did well, and dismisses him. Peru thanks Yurin and wishes him a peaceful night before leaving. After that, Yurin decides to begin his next step. He starts eating the poisonous herbs, one by one, even though he feels like vomiting. But he has already made up his mind tonight. After forcing them all down, the status window pops up with a warning that Yurin is in danger from poison and must perform breathing meditation. Concentrating, Yurin begins the meditation, determined to reach stage 2. The next morning, Aaron opens the door to wake him up, but is completely shocked to see that Yurin now has visible muscles on his body. Yurin has advanced to stage 2, acquired the martial art Little Dragon Step, and also unlocked poison techniques such as delayed toxin, truth serum, and soul-killing smoke. In the pop-up window, it also shows that Yurin has acquired the martial art Suryang's footwork. Yurin opens his eyes when he hears Aaron asking what is happening with him, and she becomes even more shocked after smelling a rotten odor coming from Yurin. Hearing that, Yurin stands up while Aaron looks like she is about to puke. Yurin realizes it is true that when inner energy rises and martial arts level up, the body expels a large amount of waste all at once. Because of that, Yurin says he will open the windows since it stinks so badly. Aaron quickly tells him not to open the window, but instead to immediately go take a bath. Yurin decides to follow her advice, and later, after changing his clothes, he walks alongside Aaron, smiling inwardly while practicing Suryang's footwork, which is now at level 1. Yurin uses it while walking. This Tang family footwork is perfect for fast movement, assassination, and evasion. Yurin still cannot believe that he is able to learn a skill that normally only appears in wuxia novels. As they walk, Yurin happily copies the movement, but Aaron notices and asks why he is suddenly walking like a drunk, wondering if his body is unwell. Yurin laughs nervously, assuring her that he is fine and telling her not to worry about him. He even tells her to relax her face a little. They continue walking as Yurin keeps doing what looks like a drunken dance. She asks again if he is really all right, and also whether he truly intends to train in Training Hall 1 today, even though there are many nights there. Yurin reassures her once more, saying he is fine and just wants to observe how the other knights train, so she does not need to worry about him at all. Aaron decides to believe him, and after some time, they reach Training Hall 1. There, Karox is practicing with his sword, while another knight is swinging a very heavy blade. 2 other knights standing nearby notice Yurin and start wondering about his identity. They recognize Aaron as Yurin's butler, but they do not recognize the young man behind her. They all question who he is, even wondering if such a handsome boy could really belong to the Marquis household. Soon, they realized the rumors they had heard must be true, that the young Master Yurin has lost a great deal of weight through training. Shocked, they finally recognize him as the infamous Yurin. The knights begin whispering about him, but Yurin becomes angry because he can hear their words clearly through his inner energy, even though they are whispering. Eren then points out someone to Yurin, telling him about a trainee who is training earnestly with good form. The man is a large, dark-skinned, muscular figure, and Eren remarks that he will likely become a junior knight soon. She explains that his movements are the basic sword stances of the Rock's family and instructs Yurin to watch closely. Yurin sees the man and immediately recognizes him as Kride, the main character of the novel and later an ally of the protagonist. Yurin had never described Kride's background in detail before the hero met him, so seeing Kride here in the Marquis household feels fascinating. Yurin thinks this might become a useful opportunity later on. Then, he looks at the other knights, all of whom harbor nothing but hatred toward him. But today, Yurin decides they will serve as the test subjects for his experiment. Right there in front of Eren, Yurin begins training while secretly planning to start by testing his prolonged poison skill on a pink-haired man. The pink-haired man suddenly felt very strange and fell to the ground, writhing in pain. Seeing that, two other knights hurried toward him, asking if he was all right. The brown-haired man asked what was wrong with him, even wondering if he needed to go to the toilet, but the pink-haired man replied that it wasn't that. He was in deep pain, before collapsing completely. Seeing this, the bald man shouted that they needed to call a priest. But suddenly, the pink-haired man stopped feeling pain and simply sat on the ground without saying anything. Seeing him like that, the brown-haired man asked again what was wrong now. The pink-haired man replied that the pain was gone. This made the others angry, because they thought he was just messing with them. The bald man scolded him, saying he had already told him to use the toilet when he needed to. While they argued and scolded him, Yurin and Eren silently observed them. At that moment, Yurin decided to test another skill, soul-killing smoke, which was currently at level 1. This skill creates illusions that cause fear and confusion within a set range. Yurin activated it right under the spot where the three knights were arguing. Immediately, the brown-haired man was shocked, suddenly seeing a monster in front of him, and he screamed. Eren was startled to see all three knights collapse to the ground, trembling in fear and shouting at each other to stay away. Eren was confused, wondering why they were acting that way, while Yurin watched with a pleased look. In their illusions, the pink-haired man saw a monster about to throw fire at him. The brown-haired man was attacked by undead skeletons, and the bald man was also attacked by a monster. He even drew his weapon to fight back, but the next moment, everything returned to normal for them. The three knights looked at each other in confusion, wondering what had just happened. Yurin decided to stop. They all explained that they had seen monsters attacking them. Satisfied, Yurin also chose to end the experiment for today, finding the results very impressive. He then told Eren that they should head back. Eren was surprised and asked if they were really leaving already. Yurin turned around with a happy face and said that it was too noisy in Training Hall 1, so they would just go to Training Hall 4 instead. As they were heading there, a maid stopped Yurin to inform him that a guest had arrived to see him. Upon hearing that, Yurin asked about the guest, and the maid revealed that Ilya had come to meet him. Yurin is very surprised to hear that Ilya has come and starts thinking about her, the girl who is good with her fists and has finally come for a visit. Thinking about it, Yurin remembers that around this time in the original story, Ilya began demanding to break off her engagement with him, but back then, he kept refusing. Reflecting on all of this, Yurin realizes it can't be helped now and decides to meet her. The scene then shifts to a room where Ilya is standing by the window, saying to herself that she will surely annul the engagement this time. Yurin enters, and Ilya is shocked when she sees his handsome face. Yurin greets her, asking if she is there, which startles her even more. She nervously asks who he is. Yurin, confused, tells her that he is Yurin. Ilya is so shocked that she shouts out loud, making Yurin even more nervous, though he still greets her politely. Ilya, still shaken, admits that she thought the rumors were false. Since it has only been 2 months, she asks how Yurin could have changed so much. Yurin replies that it is because he worked hard. She is amazed to hear that Yurin actually put in effort. Yurin continues, explaining that after being beaten up by her, He thought deeply about his life and, in the end, came to the conclusion that he needed to change himself. Ilya points her finger at him, asking if he is trying to pick a fight with her for revenge. But Yurin assures her that he would never do such a thing. Instead, he kneels down and tells her that he is very grateful. Ilya is shocked, and Yurin continues, saying it was thanks to her that he was able to come to his senses. He expresses his true feelings, sincerely apologizing for what happened back then. Yurin even suggests that if Ilya still wants to break off the engagement because of that incident, he will accept it as his punishment. Ilya is caught in a tight spot because she has never seen Yurin act like this before. She again asks who he really is. Yurin replies that he is the former scoundrel, Yurin, and bows once more to apologize. Ilya is shocked even further, staring at him with curiosity. Although it wasn't truly Yurin's fault, but rather the fault of the body's original owner, the reason Yurin now seeks forgiveness to this extent is simple, because of Ilya's traits. She is not just a simple heroine. Her Sword Queen trait is extremely overpowered, and in the future, she will only grow stronger and stronger. Later on, she will save the fallen protagonist and even defeat the main villain, all made possible by her Sword Queen trait. That is why Yurin believes that even if their engagement ends, it is better to restore their relationship and make her an ally. While he is thinking this, Ilya suddenly tells him to stand up, surprising him. She asks if he is serious about what he just said. Yurin stammers but confirms that he is serious and even promises it. Ilya doesn't accept it immediately and instead demands that he swear it, releasing her overwhelming aura. Feeling her suffocating aura, Yurin thinks to himself that he never imagined Ilya's pressure would be this heavy, though he has seen this scene before. Ilya orders him to swear that from now on, he will not live as he did before, and if he breaks this oath, she will teach him a lesson herself. Hearing those words shocks Yurin, because those were the very lines Ilya spoke to the protagonist in the original story, but now she is saying them to him. Unable to breathe properly under the pressure of her aura, Yurin decides to use his 10,000 poison skill, Magneto Divine Art, to resist it. Ilya is surprised that he is able to counter her aura and demands to know how. Yurin, keeping a polite tone, swears that he will not live like before. Ilya blushes at his seriousness, then finally steps back, agreeing to watch him. She warns that if he makes even one mistake, the engagement will be unconditionally annulled. Yurin is stunned to realize that Ilya has decided not to break off the engagement. Later, Ilya speaks with the Marquis, who asks if she has met with Yurin. She confirms it. The Marquis then asks if she has decided about breaking the engagement. Ilya replies that she has made her decision. She will not break it. The Marquis is shocked and nervously asks why. Ilya admits that she doesn't fully understand it herself. She explains that her father always told her that people cannot change. However, when she heard rumors that Yurin had changed, she became curious. She wondered if he might have returned to the weak but kind Yurin from his childhood. But the truth is different. She believes he has not simply returned to his old self, but instead has become a completely different person. That is why she wants to give him a chance and trust him once again. The Marquis is worried but also feels relieved. Ilya continues, saying that if Yurin ever goes back to being a scoundrel, she will teach him a lesson with her own hands. The Marquis is frightened but maintains his composure. Giving her a thumbs up, he asks her to take care of Yurin. Ilya nods, then stands up, saying that she will return now. Hearing that, the Marquis asks Ilya why she wants to return immediately, telling her to at least stay for a few days. It makes her anxious, and she reveals to the Marquis that she told her father she was coming to break the engagement, so staying longer would be awkward. The Marquis understands and suggests she see Yurin before leaving, but she replies that she will not, since he is training, and she doesn't want to disturb him. The Marquis appreciates her answer and tells her to give his regards to her father as well. Later that afternoon, Yurin goes to meet his father because he has been summoned. The Marquis is gazing out the window, and when he sees Yurin arrive, he turns around and pretends not to recognize him, asking who he is. Yurin is shocked, but then the Marquis bursts out laughing, saying it was a joke. He compliments Yurin, acknowledging that he has worked really hard. Then the Marquis asks if Yurin knows the reason he was summoned. Hearing that, Yurin asks if it is to begin his nightly training. The Marquis is startled by Yurin's reply and turns back, complimenting him again, saying he has also become quick-witted. The Marquis then laughs loudly and declares that he believes the time has finally come for Yurin to learn the proud swordsmanship of the Rock's family. But instead of stepping forward eagerly, Yurin raises his hand and calmly calls out to the Marquis, saying that he has something important to say regarding that very matter. The Marquis is utterly shocked when Yurin reveals his desire, not to inherit the family's swordsmanship, but instead to devote himself to the throwing arts. For a brief moment, silence falls between them. Then Yurin confirms, firm and unwavering, that his decision is final. He wants to learn throwing arts instead of swordsmanship. The Marquis, visibly angered, declared to Yurin that such an act was not permitted, dismissing it as nothing more than a cheap trick employed by thieves. He went on to state that with a crude skill like throwing a dagger, Yurin would be incapable of defeating even a knight, let alone bringing down a low-class monster such as a Borak. Unfazed, Yurin met the Marquis's words with confidence. "Then let's make a bet," he proposed, "on whether or not I can take down a Borak with nothing but a dagger." Hearing that, the Marquis finds Yurin's behavior very arrogant, considering it nothing more than useless stubbornness. The Marquis explains that a warrior's blade requires aura to destroy a Borak's scales, and that is why, in his opinion, even if Yurin practiced those throwing arts for 100 years, he would never be able to pierce a Borak's scales. Instead of arguing back, Yurin smiles and tells the Marquis that in that case, the Marquis, his father, will win unconditionally, so he should just make the bet. The Marquis is shocked and points at Yurin, calling him reckless, but finally agrees, deciding to use this as a chance to break Yurin's stubbornness forever. After that, the Marquis asks what Yurin will wager on the bet. Yurin reveals that if he wins, he wants to handle his own training from now on, but if he fails, he will follow the Marquis's will. Both agree on the terms, and Yurin returns to his room as night falls. In his room, Yurin stands next to his bed, clenching his fist. He realizes that Eren hasn't reported his training to the Marquis, so he can finally attempt a practical test tomorrow. Yurin becomes very curious, wondering how many tries it will take for him to pierce the Borak's scales. Just in case, he decides to eat some of the hidden poison herbs that night and raise the 10,000 poison Magneto-Divine Arts to the 3rd star. While he is in the middle of thinking, Eren knocks on the door and enters. Yurin looks at her as she explains that she has come to deliver a message from the Marquis. The time for tomorrow's bet is 12 o'clock, and the place will be Training Hall 1. Yurin looks at her curiously and asks if she knows the details of the bet. Eren reveals that not only she but the entire Marquis estate knows about it, and thanks to that, the estate is currently roaring with laughter. Yurin is shocked to hear this. Eren further explains that everyone is joking about how the young master Yurin will wet his pants in fear after seeing the Borak, or how he will simply run away. She tells Yurin that people are saying such things because, for now, he is still considered the public's enemy. Yurin is not happy with those remarks and looks frustrated, asking if those people will come to spectate as well. Eren confirms that they will, since the Marquis hasn't forbidden it. She is certain the training hall will be packed. Yurin feels anxious because the bet has suddenly turned into a spectacle. He then asks Eren for her opinion about tomorrow's event. Eren honestly tells him that she believes tomorrow will be Yurin's day. Later that night, Yurin levels up the 10,000 poison Magneto-Divine Arts to 3 stars. The next day finally arrives. Yurin stands in the middle of the training hall, which is filled with a large and excited crowd, making him very nervous. The Marquis, seated on the throne, calls Yurin forward and asks if he is ready. Yurin nervously replies that he is, but complains about the heavy gathering of spectators. The Marquis explains that he only intended to inform his magician, but somehow the news spread everywhere. He warns Yurin not to embarrass himself in front of so many people. The priest steps forward and begins casting short-range summoning magic to start the match. Yurin is amazed, having never seen magic in person before. A glowing circle appears in front of him, sparks of lightning surrounding it, and then the Borak finally appears. What amazes Yurin even more is seeing in person a monster that he, as the author, once created only with words. The Borak is an ocean monster, standing at a height of 150 centimeters. Even the common spectators find the Borak hideous, and Yurin himself is surprised at its appearance. The truth is, he had come up with the Borak on the spot, while eating rockfish sashimi at a restaurant. when he couldn't think of any other monster ideas. Yurin even believes that the Borik might be a little cute, if it weren't for its arms and legs. The very next moment, the Borik charges at Yurin, but he easily dodges its attacks, making the crowd and even the soldiers fear for his safety. Some soldiers near the Marquis prepare to charge at the Borik, but the Marquis stops them. Meanwhile, Yurin keeps dodging and thinks about how the Borik is charging without warning, yet its speed is not that impressive. Yurin decides to begin his practical experiment by throwing a dagger to test how thick the Borik scales are. But when he grips the dagger and looks carefully, he is amazed to see that the Borik has a weak point. Without hesitation, Yurin throws the dagger at the weak point with all his strength. The dagger strikes true, and the Borik instantly dies. Yurin acts nervously, stunned that the Borik was killed in just one hit. The spectators are equally shocked, struggling to comprehend what just happened. The most surprised of all is the Marquis himself. Soon, the crowd erupts, rooting for Yurin and calling him cool for defeating the Borik with a single strike. The Marquis immediately comes down from his throne, points at Yurin, and demands to know how he could defeat the Borik so easily. Yurin simply smiles and says that he aimed well and hit the right spot. The Marquis, however, is not satisfied. He insists that he cannot accept this result, which surprises Yurin. The Marquis argues that defeating a Borik with just one dagger makes no sense. Yurin hears this and taunts him, saying that surely the great Marquis would not go back on his own words. Meanwhile, the priest inspects the Borik and reports to the Marquis that the monster had no scales under its arm, which was exactly where Yurin's dagger had struck. This convinces the Marquis that Yurin's victory was nothing more than pure luck. Yurin replies that whether it was luck or not, a bet is still a bet. He turns to leave, but the Marquis stops him, saying not to be so dismissive. Instead, he offers to do it one more time. Yurin calls the Marquis unreasonable, but the Marquis presses further and decides to add another promise to the wager. Startled, Yurin listens as the Marquis declares that if Yurin wins again, he will grant Yurin one wish. But if Yurin loses, then he will begin learning the sword, just as they originally planned. Yurin is very pleased to hear these conditions and asks if his father is truly willing to grant him a wish. The Marquis then reveals that this time, instead of fighting a Borik, Yurin will be fighting a knight. After stating all the conditions, the Marquis asks Yurin if he will accept the bet. Yurin instantly replies that he will. He sees it as a very good opportunity, since it might be a chance to break Knight Commander Karox's pride. But Yurin also thinks it would be better to leave Karox alone so he can continue receiving poison supplies through Peru. The Marquis continues, saying that a formal knight would be too much for Yurin to handle, so he decides to have Yurin battle a training knight instead, which would be fair. Hearing this, Yurin asks if he can designate the knight for the duel. The Marquis, intrigued, asks how he plans to select. Yurin reveals that he wants to fight Kraid. Kraid comes running to the ground and bows to the Marquis, asking if his lord has called for him. The Marquis compliments Kraid's training and tells him that he wants Kraid to do something for him. Hearing this, Kraid declares that the Marquis may order him anything. The Marquis then points at Yurin and tells Kraid to fix his bad habits. Kraid looks at Yurin curiously, while Yurin waves at him. Seeing that, Yurin is shocked, and the Marquis asks if Kraid cannot do it. Kraid rises and firmly says that he will do as commanded. Yurin, smiling, tells Kraid not to worry too much, saying he will throw only 3 daggers, and if Kraid blocks all 3, then Yurin will let him win. This makes the Marquis very angry, and he orders Kraid to discipline Yurin thoroughly for his arrogance. Soon, Yurin and Kraid stand facing each other, ready to duel. The knights cheer for Kraid, urging him to win, and joking that if he loses, he won't get food, laughing about his punishment. Suddenly, a woman's voice cheers for Yurin, wishing him good luck. Hearing this makes Yurin very pleased, wondering if it was truly a woman's voice. Just from that cheer, Yurin feels emotions well up inside him. Kraid steadies his stance and tells Yurin that he is ready. Yurin turns around, takes up a dagger, and plans to go easy on Kraid for the first throw. But to his surprise, he sees countless weak points appear on Kraid's body, similar to the ones he saw on the Borik, but this time, there are many more. Yurin grows concerned, thinking that if he throws at one of those weak points, he might actually kill Kraid. So he aims carefully and throws the dagger without targeting a lethal spot. Even so, Kraid is shocked at the force of Yurin's attack, which is far too overwhelming. He barely manages to block it. The knights are stunned after hearing a sound like a cannon blast. Even the Marquis is shaken. Refusing to accept it, he inspects the dagger and then goes to pick it up, finding it impossible for such an ordinary weapon to have produced that kind of destructive power. Meanwhile, Kraid is trembling. Yurin asks him to loosen up a little, warning that he cannot let his guard down. Yurin then tells him to get ready, because this time he will throw with full power. Yurin thinks to himself that Kraid is still a main character type, so he won't die from this much. Yurin then throws another dagger at Kraid with full strength. Kraid braces himself and tries to block, but the impact creates a mist swirling around him. All the spectators, including the Marquis, are stunned to see that Kraid's sword has already shattered, leaving him trembling until he finally drops it altogether. Seeing this, the Marquis rushes to Yurin and tells him to have a private talk. But Yurin refuses, reminding him that the bet is not over yet. There is still one more dagger left. The Marquis is shocked and tells Yurin that enough is enough. Instead of agreeing, Yurin turns to Kraid and asks him directly whether he wants to end the duel like this. He tells Kraid to lift his head and asks if he truly wants to accept such a half-hearted result. Yurin reminds him that whether it ends in victory or defeat, reaching a clear conclusion is what makes a knight. He asks Kraid again if he is willing to give up. Hearing these words, Kraid hesitates but then, inspired by Yurin's speech, decides to continue. He asks for a new sword. Suddenly, a blue light bursts forth from Kraid, and he declares that he will not retreat. All the knights, and even the Marquis himself, are stunned to see the training knight Kraid awaken his aura at that very moment. Kraid now stands tall, showing his aura and taking his stance. Yurin, however, is not surprised. He already expected this. He knows that Kraid's berserker trait only manifests when he reaches his very limit. And now, Yurin thinks he can finally test advanced techniques on him. Kraid, standing in his stance, tells Yurin to throw his dagger. The Marquis looks very worried about the situation because no one expected such a massive amount of aura to manifest. It was on the level of a senior knight's talent. The Marquis wonders what Yurin will do. Yurin shows no hesitation after seeing Kraid's aura. He grabs a dagger and throws it, but instead of throwing straight, he makes it curve like a mountain. Seeing that, Kraid thinks Yurin is playing around and powers up to strike it down, believing he will easily counter it. But to his surprise, the dagger dodges Kraid's sword. Both Kraid and the Marquis are shocked. The dagger lands on Kraid's shoulder, knocking him to the ground in pain. All the knights watching are stunned. They murmur that Kraid must be exaggerating because the dagger looked so slow. Some shout that he must be going easy on Yurin just because he is the young master. Meanwhile, Yurin analyzes the experiment, thinking it worked better than expected. He realizes he had infused more internal energy into the throw, which must have caused tremendous pain. Seeing this, the Marquis orders Yurin to speak with him privately later and declares that Yurin has won the bet. Yurin smiles at this, then goes over to Kraid, who is writhing in pain. Yurin places his hand on Kraid's shoulder and heals him using internal energy absorption. Kraid is shocked to feel the pain vanish completely. He stands up and thanks Yurin. Yurin replies that it is no big deal, but Kraid apologizes, admitting that when the dagger flew slowly at first, he thought Yurin was looking down on him. Now, however, he understands it was not that at all. Kraid compliments Yurin, saying the move was a truly exquisite divine technique. He adds that there is no way Yurin could have learned such a skill in such a short time. So he concludes that Yurin must have been hiding his abilities. Yurin is surprised, but Kraid continues, asking if some secret organization is targeting the Marquis family, and if that is why Yurin has been concealing his power until now. Kraid happily admits that he always found it strange that Yurin seemed to be left out. Hearing all this, Yurin remembers that Kraid has the kind of personality that loves conspiracy theories. He tells Yurin to rely on him whenever he fights secret organizations in the future. To Yurin's surprise, Kraid's affection for him rises to 26 instantly. Yurin nervously laughs, saying he will, and tells Kraid they will meet again later. Yurin thinks to himself that berserkers really do have simple personalities. As Yurin starts to leave, Kraid shouts to everyone, telling them to trust him. That young master Yurin was never a scoundrel. and vows to spread those words everywhere. Yurin thinks it would be good to keep close to Kraid, who, as a berserker, can sweep through the Night Order on his own in the future. Yurin then approaches Eren, who is waiting with a towel in her hand. She compliments him on his hard work. Yurin thanks her and takes the towel. As they walk, Eren asks about the technique Yurin used at the end, saying she had never seen it before. Yurin replies that it was a new technique and asks what she thought of it. Eren gives her honest opinion, saying that in her head she ran a virtual sparring match, and if she had faced that move without ever seeing it before, she would have been defeated. But now that she has seen it once, she can block it. Yurin knows she is telling the truth because among her traits, clear mind is an extremely rare and powerful one. They continue talking, and Yurin mentions that Eren has received knightly education since she was young. He says that if she hadn't become his butler, she would probably be a knight by now. He asks her if she is satisfied with the way things are. Eren, amazed, asks why he is suddenly asking her such things. Later that day, the Marquis is reviewing documents in his office when Yurin arrives. Yurin greets him by calling him Lord and asks if he summoned him. This angers the Marquis, who tells Yurin to call him Father when they are alone. Because Yurin keeps refusing, the Marquis says his affection for him is fading. Yurin doesn't understand the situation, as it has never been this way before, but reluctantly agrees. The Marquis then asks about the technique Yurin demonstrated the day before. He says that even after searching through books, he could find no throwing skill that uses such clever movement. It has only been a month since Yurin began training, and no matter how much of a genius he is, it would be impossible to develop such a technique alone in such a short time. The Marquis' tone hardens as he demands Yurin tell the truth about what really happened. Yurin cannot reveal the real secret, but he had already prepared for this situation. He tells the Marquis a made-up story, that he found a book in the family library attic while searching for effective training methods. He explains that he tripped over a book left on the floor, fell into a shelf, and another book fell from the ceiling onto his head. This book had no title, only strange patterns carved on the cover. When Yurin opened it, a light burst forth, and something was absorbed into his head. After that, the book vanished. The Marquis is shocked and says the book must have been a magic tome. Yurin smiles inwardly because he already knows what magic tomes are. He himself set up this knowledge. He recalls that in the world, great magicians carve techniques or spells into books, passing them down as magic tomes. Because of this, the Marquis believes the story. He explains that their attic library holds countless books collected by ancestors, many unknown even to him. He concludes that Yurin was extremely lucky to have found the tome, and says with a smile that Yurin hit the jackpot. The Marquis then rises and says a promise is a promise. He will no longer force Yurin to learn swordsmanship. According to the additional promise he made, he asks Yurin to state what he wants. Yurin also rises and declares that he wants the position of heir. The Marquis is stunned at hearing this and immediately turns away. Yurin continues that if he says that, then the Marquis will not grant it. Hearing that, the Marquis hesitates but confirms that since it is his authority, he should grant Yurin's wish. Yurin intervenes, saying that the Marquis' expressions look far too comfortable. The Marquis looks startled hearing that, and Yurin continues, saying that he will only cause trouble if he becomes the heir. Not only that, but many within the family would rebel, especially Kayan, who would cause a huge fuss. The Marquis realizes Yurin is right and thinks about Kayan's behavior earlier. Because of all this, Yurin says that he will compromise for now. The Marquis asks if he really intends to compromise, then smiles and thanks Yurin. Yurin smiles back, because in truth he has no interest in the heir position at all. If he became heir, he would be stuck one-on-one with the Marquis every day, receiving education on castle management, a life with no freedom. Rather than that, Yurin would use his time to raise his Sichuan Tang family proficiency and travel the world to seek opportunities. The Marquis tells Yurin to state another wish. Yurin replies that his other wish is to create his own Night Order. The Marquis is stunned hearing that. Yurin continues, suggesting that he wants Eren, who is currently his butler, and Kraid, who dueled with him yesterday, as his knights. The Marquis replies that this is not harder than granting the heir position, and even compliments Eren's exceptional talent, saying it is far too good to waste as a butler. In the end, The Marquis decides to grant Urin's wish. Hearing that, Urin thanks him, but the Marquis asks who will take Aaron's place as butler, since none of the current butlers are suitable. Urin reveals that he has someone in mind, Peru, who works in the kitchen. He suggests that the Marquis make Peru a butler, but asks that it be presented as the Marquis's decision, not Urin's. The Marquis finds this suspicious and asks what is going on. Urin replies that he will explain later. The Marquis agrees easily, which makes Urin feel that his father now trusts him more and no longer asks unnecessary questions. It turns out that the Marquis's affection for Urin has risen to 74 points, an enormous increase. Urin concludes that being recognized as a son really does make a difference. Peru begins working as Urin's butler. Urin summons Aaron and Kraid to the training grounds and announces that they are going to be his exclusive night order. He tells them to train hard every day from now on. After that, he introduces his new butler, Peru, but Aaron doesn't look pleased. She recalls when she once asked Urin why he mentioned Peru as her replacement. Urin reveals that Peru is actually a spy, startling Aaron. He explains that Peru was sent by Knight Commander Karox and Kyan to kill him. Aaron becomes worried and asks why Urin is keeping Peru by his side as a butler if that is true. Urin laughs and assures her that it is fine, because Peru now only listens to him. Her thoughts are interrupted when Kraid asks a question. Seeing that, Urin gives him permission to speak. Kraid says that even though there are only 2 of them, since this is still a knight order in name, there should be a senior knight, even if not a commander. Then Kraid looks at Aaron and says that a senior knight should be someone strong, but she looks small and frail, so he should be the leader instead. Hearing this, Urin agrees that a strong knight should become the senior knight, so he orders Kraid and Aaron to fight right then and there. They begin sparring, and soon the result is clear. Aaron completely overpowers Kraid, forcing him to admit defeat. She then instructs him, saying that his attack patterns are too simple and need improvement, otherwise his moves can be read too easily. Kraid, visibly shaken, replies that he will keep that in mind. Aaron sheaths her sword, and Urin announces that the leader of the Knight Order will be Aaron. He tells everyone to applaud. Peru excuses himself, saying he will prepare dinner. As he leaves the training hall, Urin watches him carefully, able to faintly sense his energy even from a distance. Urin decides to test a new technique, using internal energy to create sound waves instead of voice, transmitting words directly to the target's hearing. This martial art, called sound transmission, is an essential skill in martial arts novels. Urin uses it and calls Peru's name. Hearing that, Peru turns back and answers, only to freeze in fear because there is no one nearby. Urin calls his name again, which frightens him even more. Urin asks why he looks so surprised. After calming down, Peru nervously asks if it is some kind of black magic. Urin corrects him, saying it is more like communication magic. Peru is amazed and says it is expected of Urin, who was never affected by poison. He explains that he has heard of black magicians who control poison with magic, so he concludes that Urin must be such a person. Urin is amused by Peru's assumption and decides not to correct him, telling him to believe whatever he wants. He then asks if the poison he requested earlier is ready. Peru confirms that the snake mind, a poison extracted from 100 venomous snakes, is prepared, though he admits it was difficult to make. Urin compliments Peru and instructs him to put the poison generously into the Tyrian soup that will be served at dinner. Peru, frightened, quickly accepts the order and runs off. Night falls, and the next day begins. Urin opens his eyes after training his inner energy. Since reaching 3 stars, his inner energy has not risen as quickly as he expected. He stands up, puts on his shirt, and thinks to himself that he doesn't know how much time there is until the world's crisis. He concludes that he has no choice but to leave the Marquis' castle. The next day, Urin informs the Marquis, who is shocked and drinking tea, that he is going out for a while. The Marquis is surprised because it is Urin's first time going out and immediately asks if Urin is planning to go to the town within the Marquis territory. Urin confirms that he is, and the Marquis continues by asking how many days he plans to be away. Urin maintains his composure while secretly thinking that he will actually go much farther, but there is no need to reveal that to the Marquis. So Urin tells him that he plans to be away for a week. Hearing that, the Marquis allows it, saying Urin has been training hard, but then asks about his escort. Urine had already expected this and replies that he doesn't need one. The Marquis is shocked and scolds him, reminding him to be aware of his position as the eldest son of the Rock's family. Urine nervously replies that he is only going to the nearby village, so there is no need for an escort. The Marquis scolds him again, warning that he still doesn't know how dangerous the world is. Even though Urine has become stronger through training, there is always the possibility that he could be poisoned. What the Marquis doesn't know is that poison no longer works on Urine. Since convincing the Marquis is too difficult, Urine proceeds with Plan B and pretends to agree, telling the Marquis he will comply. Seeing this, the Marquis calms down and asks when Urine will depart. Urine replies that he will leave in 2 days. The Marquis nods and says he will prepare an escort for that day as well. Later in his room, Urine admits to himself what he truly plans. He will not take any escort and will leave quietly tomorrow. That afternoon, Peru is shocked to hear from Urine that he doesn't have any money for travel. Urine demands that Peru lend him money, since Peru has funds provided by Karox for buying expensive poisons. Peru hesitates in shock, but Urine threatens him by asking if he doesn't want to lend the money. Frightened, Peru quickly agrees and hands over the money. Then Urine asks if Peru has that as well. Peru, confused, asks what he means, and Urine explains that he saw it last time when Peru took out poison herbs. He discovered that Peru also has a spatial pocket. A spatial pocket is a common setting in fantasy novels, a mysterious pocket capable of holding up to 1 ton of cargo while appearing very small. Peru hesitates again, but with no choice, he lends it to Urine. Urine smiles and thanks him, saying that with the spatial pocket, he won't need to carry a bag. Urine then remembers something, pulls out a herb from his pocket, and gives it to Peru. It is actually fake medicine, but Peru believes it is real. Urine instructs him that this is a month's worth of antidote for his poison. Peru is very pleased to receive it, and Urine compliments him for his good behavior, telling him to continue being obedient. Urine promises that if he keeps it up, he will eventually give him the perfect antidote. Peru is overjoyed by this promise. The next day at dawn, Urine gets ready to leave. He writes a letter and leaves it in his room before sneaking out of the castle. As he walks through the grounds, he notices there are very few people around at dawn. Suddenly, someone notices him and cheerfully asks if he is up early. Urine is startled but quickly goes along with it, confirming that he is. After looking at the old man, Urine senses something unusual about him despite his kind appearance. Urine wonders what it is and almost decides to use the Creator's Eye, but stops himself. After that, Urine successfully leaves the castle, remembering that this is the first time he has ever left its walls. After walking for a while, he comes across the magic tower and enters, approaching the receptionist. Seeing him, the receptionist asks why Urine has come. Urine explains that he wants to use warp. The receptionist immediately stands up in surprise and asks if Urine has used warp before. Urine replies that this is his first time. The receptionist then informs him that they can also accumulate mileage points for their customers. Hearing that, Urine remembers that he set up mileage just like airplanes. Then the receptionist asks about Urine's destination, to which Urine replies that it is Eldest Castle. The receptionist comments that it is quite far and begins the process. After calculating the charges, the receptionist informs Urine that it will cost 50 gold coins. Urine needs to pay and also sign the usage ticket. It was already expected that warp would be expensive. That is why Urine borrowed money from Peru. Urine fills out the form using the fake name Polion, which is a name he once used while playing online games. After checking the documents, the receptionist tells Urine to follow him and leads him to the rooms upstairs. The receptionist instructs Urine to enter the room and tells him that he will know he has arrived when he hears a knock. Urine steps inside, amazed by the warp chamber. Suddenly, the tower shakes with a flash of lightning, and in the very next moment, Urine hears a knock at the door. This signals that he has arrived at his destination. Urine is shocked by how fast it was. A brown-haired man greets him and welcomes him to Eldest Castle. Nervously, Urine comments that he didn't feel anything and is already here. The brown-haired man smiles and explains that the comfortable warp experience is their magic tower's pride. Hearing this, Urine wonders if he mistakenly set up warp experience instead of riding experience. The brown-haired man then shows Urine the way outside, wishing him a pleasant trip and encouraging him to use their service again. Urine steps out of the magic tower and immediately notices the Western-style buildings, which are completely different from those of the Marquis castle. Since AAS castle is in the Western region, the architecture is distinct in shape and style. Not only that, but Urine also notices the roads are filled with many people. After taking it in, Urine decides that his first priority is to find the blacksmith alley. He begins asking around for directions. After receiving instructions, Urine heads out to search for it, but no matter how much he looks, he cannot find the unicorn smithy. Since it is already getting dark, Urine decides to check one last alley. After climbing a set of stairs, he spots a blacksmith at work. The black-haired man looks up and asks if Urine is a customer. Urine replies that he wants to ask him something, and inquires if there is a blacksmith shop called Unicorn Smithy among the smithies in the area. Hearing the shop name, the black-haired man tells Urine that no such shop exists yet. Urine is shocked, wondering if he got it wrong, but then the man reveals that he had actually been planning to use Unicorn Smithy as the name of his shop soon. Urine immediately uses the creator's eye trait on the black-haired man after hearing his words and checks his status window. The man's name is Girinox, and his traits include magic weapon creation and fire affinity at level 3, as well as focus and precision at level 2. His affection toward Urine is at 14 points, which Urine finds interesting. Seeing his traits, Urine becomes happy, thinking he has found the right person. He asks Girinox if he can look at the weapons he sells in his shop. Girinox agrees and invites Urine over to his side to take a look. Urine walks around, inspecting the weapons, and then asks Girinox how his business is going. Hearing that, Girinox smiles awkwardly and explains that his shop is located in a corner, and since his skills are still lacking, customers usually just look around and leave without buying anything. Because of this, he doesn't know how much longer he can keep going. Urine finds that very strange, because the weapons he sees are no joke at all. Each of the swords has excellent abilities and blessings. Urine asks if Girinox made all of the swords himself. Girinox confirms that he did, but insists that they turned out to be failures. Shocked, Urine listens as Girinox explains that once completed, the swords became strangely heavy, so much so that even people with great strength could barely lift them. As a result, nobody bought them. Urine, however, knows the real problem. Only unqualified people have tried to wield the swords. If someone qualified were to use them, the swords would lend their power. Realizing that Girinox doesn't yet understand his own worth, Urine happily tells him that he will buy 2 swords. Girinox becomes worried and asks why he would buy them when they are failures. Urine, meanwhile, wants to gift the swords to Aaron and Kraid, but he is also searching for a true treasure. So he asks Girinox if he has any severely rusted weapons. Girinox is shocked to hear such a request, but still shows him the pile of rusted weapons, explaining that they are unusual for anyone to want. Usually, they are gathered up and sold cheaply since no one buys them anyway. But just as Urine had planned, he finds the weapon he was searching for. Girinox admits that he didn't forge that one and doesn't know where it came from. It was sitting in the warehouse, and he had considered throwing it away, but he felt it would be a waste, so he left it there. Seeing the weapon, Urine immediately says he will take it too. Girinox is surprised but agrees to sell everything to Urine for only 2 gold coins, since Urine had also chosen a defective piece. Urine is delighted at the bargain, knowing that once these weapons' true identities are revealed, they will become items worth not just 200 gold each, but possibly even more. Suddenly, Urine remembers something else. He realizes it's not just the weapons that are valuable. The man Girinox himself is also appealing. So Urine advises him that, since his business is struggling, he should consider closing the shop and working as a craftsman for hire instead. Girinox smiles, surprised by the suggestion. He admits that he has thought about closing before, but it all feels very sudden. Hearing this, Urine decides to formally introduce himself. He declares that he is the invincible spear who protects the South, Urine Rocks of the Rocks family. Hearing the name Rocks family, Girinox is shocked and immediately bows, apologizing to Urine. Urine becomes nervous at the reaction and tries to get Girinox to stand up, but Girinox insists he is comfortable like this and tells Urine to speak freely. Urine reluctantly agrees and tells him to rise, thinking to himself that the medieval class system cannot be helped. Girinox then asks why Urine would want to hire a blacksmith like him. Urine replies that it is because of his special talent. Jiranox denies it, saying he doesn't have any such talent, which is why his master scolded him every day. Urine is shocked to hear this. He doesn't know who Jiranox's master was, but clearly, they must have trained him in an extremely harsh way. Urine explains that he visited many smithies that day and saw many weapons, but Jiranox's stood out. They were crafted and handled with exceptional care. His swords are excellent, but what impressed Urine most were the handle knots, remarkably meticulous and essential for preventing slipping. After seeing such detail, Urine believes that Jiranox possesses a special talent that will one day bloom and flourish. Urine had just made something up on the spot, but he wondered if it would really work. Jiranox decided to follow Urine after hearing that, which pleased him. But then Jiranox laughed, commenting that Urine was very different from the rumors. Laughing, Urine asked if he meant the rumors about him being a scoundrel. After that, Urine told Jiranox he would show him something interesting. He pricked his finger with the dagger to awaken the mystical artifact, Agnes. The dagger began to float in the air, creating strong waves of wind around it. Jiranox was shocked and asked what was happening. Urine explained that it was a legendary ego sword, a sword that in the original story was supposed to be obtained by the protagonist. A pop-up window appeared, asking if Urine would proceed with the soul contract with Agnes. Urine agreed, and suddenly the dagger shattered, reforming into a new shape. Urine was surprised, because according to the settings, the ego sword should have had a cute girl's voice, but the current voice was not that at all. The dagger mocked Urine, demanding to know who he was to make a contract with it. Urine didn't understand, but the ego sword continued, claiming that Urine had no talent at all. This made Urine angry, as the ego sword seemed disappointed that it couldn't sense any mana from him, but he didn't like its attitude. The ego sword kept taunting him, calling him a nobody. Urine grew even angrier, thinking to himself that the sword didn't even sound like the delinquent high school girl character he had imagined. The ego sword then asked how Urine knew about its location and the release spell. Urine replied that he had heard it from meeting the Great Prophet, a background detail he had forcibly added into the novel for plausibility. The ego sword found it impossible to believe and asked why the Great Prophet would tell such things to someone as useless as Urine. It then asked if Urine also knew the abilities of the ego sword. Urine smirked and replied that he already knew everything, since he was the one who had created the setting in the first place. Agnes could be divided into two parts. One was the main body, and the other was a secondary body that functioned as a freeform weapon. Each part could transform into whatever type of weapon the wielder imagined. In the original story, the protagonist used it as both a sword and a shield. Even if the secondary weapon was lost, it would always return to the main body. The ego sword realized Urine truly knew about its abilities but taunted him again, saying he would never be able to use it because it could only be wielded with mana. The sword told him to give up. Urine, fed up, snapped back that the sword was too noisy. He pointed his finger at the ego sword, forcing it to become affiliated with him. Urine decided to carry it in its transformed state as a ring. After being bound to Urine, the ego sword suddenly felt a strange warmth. This assured Urine that martial arts energy could also work in place of mana for the ego sword. Turning back to Jiranox, Urine asked how much time he would need to organize his affairs. Jiranox replied that he could do it in just 2 days. Hearing that, Urine instructed him to meet at noon in 2 days in front of A.S. Castle's Central Park. Afterward, while Urine was walking down the street, he was noticed by Ilya, who asked why Urine was in S. Castle. Urine wonders why Ilya is there, but suddenly senses that the situation in front of the Central Park feels oddly familiar and questions whether it is what he is thinking. Ilya, riding her horse, notices Urine and stops to talk to him. Urine feels as if the moment mirrors the scene where the original protagonist first meets Ilya. Ilya keeps calling out to Urine, but when he doesn't reply, she raises her voice to force his attention toward her. Urine quickly apologizes while thinking about how the flow of the story has changed. Ilya dismounts from her horse and asks why Urine is there. Urine replies that he came to find a blacksmith. Ilya doesn't understand, pointing out that the Rox family already has many blacksmiths. Urine agrees, but explains that he wants to use his own personal blacksmith. Ilya smiles, saying that she would have helped him if he had told her in advance. Urine continues, saying it's fine because he has already found someone good. and then points toward Girinox, who arrives after preparing himself. Girinox hurries to the meeting point and asks if Yurin has waited long. Yurin replies that he has come at the right time and introduces him to Ilya as his fiancée. While they are talking, one of the knights addresses Ilya as captain, reminding her that they need to depart, but also asks about Yurin's identity. The knight's name is Musk, and Ilya introduces Yurin to him as her fiancé. Yurin rocks. Musk's expression changes after hearing this, but he keeps calm, greets Yurin, and introduces himself as the 5th squad leader of the Marquis family's Steel Hammer Knight Order, Musk Malin. Yurin politely replies that it's nice to meet him. Yurin, however, already knows Musk well enough, titles aside, since he is the one who created the character. Simply put, Musk is an extra with nothing much to him, except for a lousy personality. In the original novel, the setting played out like this. Musk and his Knight Order block the path, refusing to move. Musk tells them to step aside if they don't want to die. Then the protagonist steps forward, a fight breaks out, and Ilya appears just in time to stop it, beginning her connection with the protagonist. The important part afterward is that the protagonist accompanies Ilya into battle and saves her from a deadly crisis. But now, Yurin cannot find the protagonist anywhere to return him to the story. Since he can't allow Ilya to die, he steps in himself. That's why Yurin asks Ilya where they are going. Ilya explains that orc raids have been increasing near Eldest castle, and their Knight Order has received reconnaissance and subjugation orders. Hearing this, Yurin asks Ilya a favor. He wants to accompany her. Ilya is very surprised and asks why. Yurin explains that he wants real combat experience and also wishes to see her skills. Ilya argues that it will be dangerous. Yurin replies that it's fine, since at the very least he is good at running away. After some thought, Ilya orders Musk to provide Yurin with a horse. Musk strongly disagrees, saying they aren't going on a trip and that they cannot let their guard down, even if the enemies are just orcs. He points out that he can't sense any mana from Yurin or Girinox and insists they don't have the ability or luxury to protect them. Hearing his complaints, Ilya firmly reminds Musk that she isn't asking a favor but giving an order, so he should follow it without further argument. Musk, unhappy, has no choice but to obey and grudgingly says he will prepare the horse right away. As he leaves, he mutters that if Ilya is so upset, then she should just make him captain. Yurin and Ilya watch in silence. After some time, the group departs for the mission. While riding, Ilya instructs Yurin to stay close to her because it will be dangerous. Yurin agrees and tells Girinox to hold on tight. Girinox, looking nervous, grabs firmly as they set the horses into motion. They eventually reach their destination, and Ilya orders the knights to split into groups of 5 to search for orc settlements. She strictly forbids them from attacking alone and instructs that if they find a settlement, they must retreat immediately and fire a signal flare. After giving her orders, Ilya leads her team, including Yurin, in another direction. Later, at dawn, Ilya's group is still searching, but the orc tracks are too messy, making it very difficult to locate anything. One of the soldiers asks what they should do since it will soon get dark. Ilya considers and decides they should head back for the day, but suddenly, a flare goes up from another team. At that very moment, another flare shoots into the sky, and then another. Ilya asks how many have gone up. A soldier replies that he saw 5, but Yurin knows it was actually 4. Ilya reacts quickly and decides to head toward the closest one. They rush there, but upon arriving, they are horrified to find all the soldiers already dead. Ilya, worried about the other soldiers, decides to head toward the flare fired to the south. They hurry there, only to find the same scene as before, all soldiers dead. Ilya freezes in shock, but a soldier urges her to move quickly to the next area. Ilya agrees, but Yurin speaks up, insisting that they shouldn't move right now. Ilya asks the reason for Yurin's objection, and he explains that the orcs in the area are scattered, hunted down by the soldiers one by one. This means there will be no chance of winning like this. Yurin suggests that they stop the operation and fire a signal flare to gather their forces in one place. Hearing that, one of the soldiers snaps at Yurin, telling him to be quiet since he has no right to interfere, and even blames Yurin for the mess they are in. Yurin recalls that in the original story, the protagonist was also cursed out at this part, and even readers criticized him for making them frustrated. The soldier continues shouting at Urin, belittling him and telling him not to speak if he doesn't know anything about combat. Urin points at the soldier and coldly tells him to shut up. The soldier is shocked and suddenly collapses in pain. Ilya doesn't understand the situation and looks at Urin's face. Urin, visibly angry, tells the soldier to know his place. Tremendous pain humbles the soldier, and he starts begging. Urin orders him to just watch silently. Then Urin shifts his attention back to Ilya. In the original story, Ilya didn't listen to the protagonist and insisted on her own thoughts. But now that Urin has changed the situation, he tells her to judge wisely. Ilya silently observes Urin, then agrees, deciding to think with a cool mind. She orders the knights to fire a blue signal flare immediately to gather their forces in one place. The soldiers fire the flare, and they wait for reinforcement. Girinox, amazed by Urin's decisiveness, whispers to him about how he made everyone move according to his will. Urin laughs, replying that it was nothing. While Ilya is speaking with the other knights, Girinox remarks that many soldiers will soon gather. Urin, however, remains silent, which shocks Girinox. Urin explains that most soldiers won't be able to come at all, because the orc named Kurata has already gone around and dealt with them. Girinox becomes very frightened and asks what Urin is waiting for in such a dangerous place. Urin smiles and replies that he is waiting for real combat. Suddenly, a soldier comes running toward them, shouting for everyone to run immediately. The soldier is crying and trying to speak, but Ilya suddenly shifts into battle mode when she sees what is chasing him. The soldier is being pursued by many orc warriors, and they are in large numbers. Ilya is startled by the sight and turns to Urin, apologizing, because she believes he is about to die because of her. Urin calmly replies that it's all right, since they won't die here. Urin then begins walking toward the orc monsters. Ilya, shocked, asks what he is about to do. Ignoring her, Urin tells Agnes that it's time to try what they practiced over the past 2 days. He then orders Agnes to create black iron bullets with its secondary body. This is a technique Urin obtained when his 10,000 poison absorption divine energy reached 3 stars, but he hadn't yet had a chance to test it. Urin's black iron explosions are at level 1, a skill that launches hidden weapons which explode by infusing internal energy into the bullets. However, to use it, a hidden black iron weapon is required. Thanks to Agnes, Urin now has the ability to create that weapon. He throws it toward the orcs, and it attaches to one of their axes. A few seconds later, the bullets detonate, creating a massive explosion that defeats many orcs at once. Urin recalls the secondary weapon and happily notes how convenient it is. The remaining orcs roar and charge at him, but he uses the bullet weapon again, defeating another group. Ilya rushes up to him, asking what exactly he is throwing at the monsters. Urin shows her the secondary weapon, explaining that it's called Black Iron Explosion, and promises to explain in detail later. He then tells her that he has already reduced the orc numbers significantly. Startled, Ilya shouts at the soldiers, asking what they are waiting for. She urges them that they can win now. It is their only chance. With her command, Ilya and the soldiers charge toward the orcs. Ilya defeats the first one, while other soldiers manage to defeat several as well. But then, seeing their defeat was near, one of the orcs tries to run away. His path is blocked by another orc, this one with red skin. The green orc is tiny in front of the red one and trembles in fear. The red orc grabs the green one by the head and kills it on the spot. Ilya, the knights, and even the other orcs are stunned by the shocking scene. Ilya is startled by the ridiculous size of the red orc. Urin, however, stays silent, thinking that the legendary orc warrior has finally appeared. The red orc is none other than Kurata. Urin knows that if they cannot defeat it today, then all of them will die. Kurata roars, unleashing his reddish, formidable aura, which creates massive waves of wind. He swings his sword, and then takes a stance, ready to charge at Ilya. She knows she cannot counter his attack, so she prepares to avoid it. At that moment, Urin rushes in to save her, scolding her for just standing there. They barely dodge Kurata's strike, which crashes into the ground with immense force, while Urin carries Ilya piggyback to safety. Once in a secure spot, Urin shouts at Ilya, telling her she almost died just now. But Ilya is stunned when she sees the ground around them. Every one of her soldiers has been killed, and Kurata is already preparing to attack again. Yurin quickly decides to use the black iron explosion weapon against Kurata and hurls it at him. It lands near Kurata's ear and detonates, but shockingly, it has no effect at all. There isn't even a single scratch on Kurata. After taking the blast, Kurata says something in his language. Yurin is shaken, realizing that none of his attacks are working. Since Kurata is an orc warrior, his skin was originally set to be as tough as steel, but now, witnessing it firsthand, it feels terrifying. Ilya, furious at Kurata for taking down her subordinates, curses him. She finds it unforgivable and makes her stance, infusing aura into her sword. She charges straight at Kurata, striking quickly, but Kurata blocks her blade with his own. Ilya keeps swinging relentlessly, while Kurata parries each strike with ease. Jiranox and Yurin watch closely. Yurin is impressed, thinking that it is expected of Ilya. The Sword Empress trait is truly overpowered. It is still early in the novel, yet she is strong enough to push Kurata this far, even though Kurata's steel-like skin and armor are being attacked by Ilya. He still stands tall, as if nothing has happened. Kurata continues muttering in his language, then suddenly releases an immense burst of aura. Ilya is stunned. An orc using aura is unheard of. Kurata now launches his counterattack, and Ilya barely manages to block. Just as in the original novel, Ilya begins to lose ground against Kurata. Unable to handle his overwhelming power, she collapses to the ground. Kurata, unscathed, walks toward her. The knights rush to her aid and help her stand. Frustrated, Ilya admits that she cannot defeat Kurata. With no other option, she tells the soldiers that they must retreat. But as Kurata advances toward Ilya, Yurin steps in. Kurata speaks again in his language, but Yurin ignores him, pulling out a dagger for a direct throw. He launches it with all his might, startling Kurata, who instinctively counters it with his sword, shattering it in one blow. Yurin is shocked. Kurata destroyed his dagger with a single strike. However, Kurata suddenly notices a cut on his shoulder. The wound instantly explodes, creating a powerful blast. Kurata gets injured, and his arm becomes useless. Yurin laughs, explaining that the first dagger was a fake. While Kurata blocked the direct shot, he didn't notice the real dagger Yurin had thrown from behind. Smirking, Yurin points out that even though Kurata's skin is as tough as steel, not every part of his body is invulnerable. The weak points appear in the cracks of his armor, and Yurin won't hesitate to exploit them. Enraged, Kurata swings his sword at Yurin. Surprised, Yurin barely manages to dodge, by mere milliseconds, and avoids the next strike as well. He counters by firing another bullet, taunting Kurata and asking where he's going. The bullet hits, causing another explosion. Walking forward confidently, Yurin sneers, asking if Kurata is angry, then mocks him, saying he has no intention of being caught obediently. Seeing Yurin beginning to overpower him, Kurata suddenly shifts his gaze toward Jiranox. Yurin notices this and shouts, demanding to know where Kurata is looking, but the orc ignores him and starts heading straight toward Jiranox, forcing Yurin to yell in alarm.